So it's February and we're headed to Chickamauga. It's the first trip of the year. Can't wait. Been cooped up all winter. Just couldn't be more excited to get down there to Chick and chase one of those giant bass. So as you've noticed in other videos, Chickamauga is definitely one of my favorite lakes. We get excited about going down there because one of the things that I personally love doing is getting after giant bass, or at least going to locations where, we feel like they're a giant bass. Last year we went down to Guntersville in February, and this year we decided to stay with Chick. We didn't have as much time, and Chick's a little closer drive to Eastern Kentucky, but we had the day where we caught the 7 and the 8 pounder in the same day, and since then, fishing memories, we head back to Chick every time. Just in hopes of crossing paths with fish of that class again. One of the things that you have to do on these big lakes now is you have to put that fish in the well and then, take pictures a few minutes later because, guys will absolutely just bird dog you if they see you taking pictures with a big fish. So for me, one of the players always early spring on Guntersville, Tennessee River Lakes, Chickamauga is the Booyah One Knocker and Rayburn Red. So on this trip, we're using the favorite absolute 7-foot medium heavy. There's not a better rod on the market for the money than the favorite absolute. Also on this trip, we're using the Braze X from Seaguar 12-pound test. You can't beat this stuff in the rocks and other elements. Now I can't even pretend like on this trip that I caught the big fish because Mike had the big fish right here. He catches one probably about 5.5 pounds. My big fish on this trip was about 4.5 pounds. So it wasn't one of those trips where we ran into one of those Chickamauga giants per se, but we still caught some good fish and we caught quite a few fish.
I got the right artillery to cut hooks off.
So since I was a kid, my dad has always asked that I keep a set of lineman pliers or small bolt cutters in my boat in case you're to get a hook in your skin. You can cut that barb off. But in this case, I was using those bolt cutters to cut the barbs off of hooks because Tennessee's a 3-hook state.
I was like, God dang, what does he have? Smooth.
As you can see laying around the boat, we did quite a bit of damage on the 1/4 ounce model as well. So the advantage for me for the 1/4 ounce would be that it stays up out of some of that grass that's already coming up this time of year, and it's a little easier to keep it clean and get more casts. So in looking at my setup, all right, I'm throwing a Shimano Corrado 6.2 to 1. Sometimes as the water warms up, I'll go with a little faster retrieve ratio, but in this situation, the water's still pretty cold in the 40s, so I went with that 6.2 to 1. I'm throwing it with 12-pound Braze X from Seaguar. This line, it's some of my favorite fishing line ever. It's fluorocarbon, but it's a little more durable than most fluorocarbon that's on the market. So, check out that Braze X from Seaguar. So in looking at the Tennessee River and in this situation, you know, we had a bunch of water that had ran through the system in recent weeks. The 2 or 3 days before our trip, you know, there were a ton of rain in the Tennessee River Basin. So, you know, the first day that we went out fishing, there was a lot of current. Really the first day and a half, there was a lot of current. And, you know, they were pulling the lake pretty hard, and there was a lot of activity. You know, the thing about the Tennessee River lakes is they are electricity producing lakes. And, you know, that being said, the current has a ton to do with, you know, the mood those fish are in when it comes to feeding. So, you know, the first day and a half, really, even though the weather was a little colder, those fish were a little more active than on the last day. On the last day, they'd really stopped pulling. If you know anything about Chick, for instance, Sunday traditionally is the day they pull the least amount of current based on what I've read. So, you know, Sunday's not always a great day to fish on Lake Chickamauga. But, so, you know, on this trip, looking at structure and the things that we targeted and tried to fish, you know, the grass is starting to come up. Some of that grass doesn't die completely off. And I think the number one key for us in finding fish all over the lake was to find some grass, some new growth, some green grass. And those fish in that lake just always like to live in grass, and I think they always like to live shallow, you know, regardless what the temperature is. In my opinion, Chickamauga, those bass are some of the most educated bass on the planet. Those bass are not easy to catch. You know, they've been pressured a lot. There are a lot of tournaments, you know.
We're still spot locked, aren't we?
On that muddy waterway.
That's what I was fishing down here and I had a bang.
The day that we left, the college anglers were coming in, you know, and Chick is really known for this, that, you know, a lot of tournament series target that lake. So in terms of pressure, you know, Chickamauga gets probably as much as any lake on the planet. So one of the things that we found successful hand in hand with the grass was we like to find, at least this time of year, those little contour changes, those little humps, those little ridges right off the main river channel. You know, there's a lot of reason for those fish to be there. And, you know, on this trip, we also try to target some shell beds as well. But these two locations are right off the main river channel. And the reason we like these right off the main river channel and in channel swings is because of that current. You know, that current just constantly allows those bass to be ambush predators in the sense that it's constantly running food by them. It's constantly pulling food and, you know, different things by those fish. So, you know, they just sit in that outer layer of that grass in that ambush position. But the main reason that I like Chick is because of the potential to catch, you know, a personal best. And, you know, Chickamauga is about 4.5 hour drive for us from Eastern Kentucky. And it's just the closest lake to our house to where we feel like we have a chance to maybe catch a double-digit bass. You know, looking at me personally, in 2022, that's one of the goals. So my biggest bass is an 835 from Gunnersville. You can check that video out in the cards. And this year, that's one of my goals, is to top that fish. You know, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that that's one of the things that I do. I run around the country and try to get after those giant fish. This year, the days of catching that true giant bass are getting slimmer, because once February and even March are gone, you know, you don't have as many encounters with those big fish after the spawn that you do, you know, before and maybe even during the spawn. But, you know, we still have that opportunity in Chickamauga in the fall and the frog fishing, and I can't wait to get back down there because, you know, we do know the potential that Lake Chickamauga has in the fall with that frog bite, and it's just something like I've never experienced. But, so, you know, as usual, Mike and I, we burned a bunch of gas. We ran all around the lake. You know, one of the things that we hit first is we tried to fish some rocks. We felt like, you know, with the sunlight that we had the days that we were there, that maybe those rocks would warm up first, and we really tried to target those rocks where it started up shallow. And, you know, we had a channel swing or some reason for those fish to be stacked up there. You know, this is a time of year when fish will stack up, and you'll find those big groups and pods of fish. You know, as the days get longer, those fish know it's time to go, and, you know, a little pre-spawn action starts happening. So, you know, that being the case, those are the types of areas that we looked for, was, you know, right off the main river channel. We also targeted some secondary points and some locations that, you know, maybe an early pre-spawner would be up there, you know, looking to do its work. And that's one of the things that you've seen, you know, in the Classic and other events that happen in February, particularly on Gunnersville. You know, some of the biggest fish are already up there, you know, in that laydown, you know, looking to go to work and looking to spawn out. So these fish, you know, water temperature is, in my opinion, a factor, but, you know, the length of the day, the moon phase also has a lot to do with these fish going early. You know, and in my experience, I believe the biggest fish in the lake go first. So, you know, that's what we're down here after, and that's what we're trying to have a run in with, is one of those double-digit Chickamauga bass.
felt that. No, that's good. That's a damn good one. Oh yeah, let's go, baby.
The sandhill cranes were everywhere on this trip. They were noisy, so needless to say, the sandhill cranes spend their winter time on Lake Chickamauga. You know, it's hard to complain about a trip where you go and you catch fish and you have some great weather, but another good trip to Chickamauga. Can't wait to get back. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. Thanks for watching.
Oh yeah, we got a swing shot, man. Anything on TV?